Welcome to the S.J. Child Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Child Show. Today, I have a wonderful couple that I'm going to be talking to, and I think you guys are really going to like this episode. You're going to get a lot of value out of it. There's going to be some, it's just great energy. I can tell right away from the get-go. So welcome to Dr. Ray and Jean. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us on your podcast.
Yeah, I love it. And my middle name is Jean, by the way, Jean. It's awesome. Sarah Jean. That's the SJ. So
my sister's name is Sarah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, yep. So many similarities. I'm telling you. Well, it's just such an honor to have you guys here today. And I love the message that you share. And I just want to jump in and kind of get to know more about you and how it got started. So give us an introduction, whoever wants to go first. And we'll go from there.
So I'm Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkhodaian. We have been co-founders of a counseling clinic in the Chicagoland area for over 20 years. Our focus in life's work has been about working with couples and helping couples have healthy relationships. And our clinic focuses on that, on couples work and also family work as well, because obviously if the couple is not strong enough, the family is not going to be, supported and strong as well. We started another company called Couple Synergy, which is also the focus of our podcast as well, on relationships and helping couples, learn all the tools and skills necessary to have healthy relationships.
Yeah, there's not a lot of training in doing couples work or family work in the psychology field. And so when we were new clinicians in the field back in the late 1990s, we would get thrown a couple or a family, and it was usually a disaster. You're wrestling, you're refereeing, nothing therapeutic is happening. And so in 2002, we're like, I think we can find a better way to do this. And so we opened up a clinic, and we really just focused on couples for like 20 years. And we worked with thousands of couples. And what we found is this pattern that people need to learn. And so we've created a program called Couple Synergy Method, which is a 90-day program that we take couples through no matter where they are at in their relationship, whether they're engaged, whether they've been married for 30 years. It's all the things that we don't learn because our first relationship is parent-child. Mm-hmm. And then because of that, we show up in our primary relationship as parent-child. We flip-flop that. And so our goal is to help people understand the skills that they need and the awareness and it's really developmental of how to be an adult in an adult relationship.
I love that. There's a interview I did not too long ago, and it's kind of similar along the same lines, called Family Constellations. And it kind of talks about the same thing and really like playing your part in the family, not playing the part of the mom when you're the wife, not playing the part of the kid when you're the husband, or, all the things. And it's an idea that we haven't had in our society that isn't, prevalent, that we need more of, so that we can all learn learn how to be in a relationship, learn how to be an adult in a relationship and with a connection. What type of clients, like what are some problems that you find are the baseline for a lot of these couples?
Well, most couples that come in, they say they have a communication problem. Mm-hmm. And it is really not about language or being able to verbalize to each other. It's really this breakdown of this interchange between the two of them. They're not able to hear each other. Mm. And so when that disconnect happens between the couple, then the breakdown extends to the whole family as well. Right. So, we look at families as a system, and each member of that system occupies a role. And when one member of that system, is kind of discombobulated, then it affects the entire system. And so when you can think about the couple themselves, if they are not connected, then the whole family starts to break down.
We've really changed in our society as well. Our grandparents had specific roles that they did in the relationship, and they didn't care about happiness. They cared about doing your 40 years of work and getting your gold watch and stay home and raise the kids. And now to us, which is only 2 generations from that, working parents and all sorts of different ways that families are set up, to even our kids, which is even more different. What? Oh, it's our wash machine. Hold on a second. We have to edit this up. Like,
not a problem.
The dog scratching at the door. So I'm going to have him shut that off first.
Yeah, absolutely fine. So no problem. I love that about editing software. It's so much easier these days. It's a slide of the finger and then you're good.
So, the choices people have to make now, they're not all set for you. And we've eroded our communities. So it's even more difficult to know what is the norm or what's happening in other people's homes. So there's a freedom in that, but a burden in that of really trying to decide for yourself and your family about what's best for you. And children are much more isolated from each other. They don't go out and play and figure it out anymore. They have adults around them all the time. So everything's just so much more complicated. And the disconnect that a person has in themselves between their head and their heart, because of the way that we raise people, and they go to school and they get over intellectualized, but they really don't learn the emotional intelligence or the spiritual development. That those are key things for relationships.
Yeah. I said that I was listening to one of your episodes before this, and one thing that I love that you were talking about was the law of attraction, and how as adults, and we can understand that. I teach my kids about it. I would hope that anybody that does learn about it can do the same, because of the power it has and it holds in that. And even, my 11-year-old, I can have these discussions with her about energy and the vibe she feels. And really, we just had a situation where she was questioning, well, should I be friends with this person? And instead of me being the controlling parent and, well, of course you shouldn't because of this and this and that, I said, what does your gut say? That's where you need to go. Look there, listen to that, and then make your decision. Then you'll know how to keep listening to that. We have to practice that to make our decisions in life. And she did. And afterwards we had a discussion, and she said, I'm kind of mad at myself for being friends with this person when I saw all these red flags in the first place. And I said, it's okay. This is how we start to understand the people that we waste our time with, or our energy, or we learn something from. And it's never really a waste of time, because we really do learn something from it in one way or another. And I think that that's a beautiful way to try to go about it.
That is really fantastic, because most parents out there are not teaching their kids to look inward and to trust their gut, right? And to really know what's going on within themselves. They're teaching them to look externally for the answers. And, so that's some of the problems that we see with families, is that there's huge enmeshment that's going on, right? These parents are being bulldozers and making sure that they clear all the obstacles for their kids so that their kids don't have to deal with any adversity. And it's really about that adversity and resilience, that makes us, strong people in this world, right? Being able to go through challenges.
Absolutely. And it's as simple as watching your kid go skating for the first time and they fall down and they fall down and they fall down and they fall down. And you don't run out and pick them up and embarrass them in front of everyone. You let them do it. And eventually, if they like it enough and they don't get hurt, they will get better and they'll do it on their own, and they'll build their own self empowerment and confidence in a skill that they were able to overcome in making mistakes. And when you can honor that with your kid and say, make the mistakes and make them now while you're here with me to help you gather everything up and fix it along the way. It's so nice. But I agree with you that clearing obstacles isn't the way. Like, how will our kids get out in the world and be able to have any conflict resolution if we are getting in the middle of things, if we're, using our power of parental figure to talk to their parental figure and we're not letting them figure it out amongst themselves? Like, I agree with you there so much.
Yeah. At our clinic in Chicago, because of the work we were doing with couples, we would really transform the relationships. And then from there, they would say, I've got some issues with my kids. I got issues with my extended family. And so then that's when we created another model called family synergy therapy. And that model is really about taking the family system and teaching them those skills of non-enmeshment and being able to have the parents on the same page and present themselves as a unified front, right? And then helping each child really feel secure in their own role. Yeah. Right? That one person isn't occupying the role of, the identified patient and having all the outbursts, and then the other child is being, in the shadows, and really helping the family system as a whole occupy really healthy roles within that system.
Absolutely. Jean, what do you think about how do you help a parent understand how to better communicate with their spouse so that they can also then communicate better with their child?
The part of communication that breaks down first is in the individual, that they are so focused on the world that they don't know who they are anymore, especially women. And when a couple first comes in, they can tell you everything they think their partner should change. And they don't know that they have their own work to do. It's really amazing how we're designed like that. As we see outward, we don't see inward. And that's the first thing we do is we break the couple up for the first month. I don't mean break them up.
Sure.
We separate them. And we'll use the term of the boxing analogy, and two boxers are going at it and they wind up all tangled together, and the ref comes and separates them. And then we help them find their voice and learn who they are. And from that place, we help them see that their partner is a wounded human, right? That behaves badly because they're hurting, and to develop more empathy and compassion, and also receive that empathy and compassion. And we do a lot of building on affection. We don't have enough non-sexual affection that's appropriate.
Yeah. And
our media is constantly bombarding us with really unhealthy sexuality. And so people are their nervous systems are fried. And they have to learn to calm down. This is why we created a weekend, and not intensive, relationship enhancement weekend. We just had one, and the couples were like, let's call it this instead. So we're shifting that. We unplug them. We take their phones, and we're out here in the country, in the middle of the mountains, in a lodge that they don't get any contact with anyone but themselves and their partners. And the first thing that happens is they decompress that nervous system. And if you have a child and they're having a meltdown for whatever reason, you can't communicate. They're so upset. Our brain doesn't work like that. And we almost never get to a place where we're calm enough to actually understand our own feelings and then be able to show up and listen. We talked about listening earlier to our partner and what they are going through, and not taking that personally, and not making it about us, And that happens all the time. Your partner says, well, this is how I feel. Well, you did this and I did, and then you get in just that one-upping thing.
Yeah.
As opposed to really being able to be present and listen. And from that place, parents aren't really they've stopped parenting.
Mm-hmm.
They've become enmeshed with their kids. Kids are not being potty trained now till they're 5 years old. They're not seeking out a driver's license at 16. They're afraid to drive. They are sleeping in their parents' beds till they're going through puberty or beyond. We're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff. So the kids aren't being properly allowed to be kids.
Oh, yeah.
They're being elevated to
agreed.
adult status, and it's really damaging and a burden for them.
Yeah. Especially in our family, we see that with our old, we have an oldest. She's already married and moved out. So she won't be the oldest in this situation. But the oldest, then our youngest is kind of his caretaker. And then inadvertently, because obviously wouldn't have scheduled all this to happen this way. But we have to be so cognizant and so aware of that internal kind of struggle and burden that she feels, and then kind of almost allow her a little bit of extra space and a little bit of extra for whatever to compensate for that. Because we see kind of that how do I even put it? Like this innate sense that she always has had, ever since she was 2 or 3 and he is 2 years older, she still knew she had to take care of him and had to watch out for him and all of these things. And it really, like you said, it creates this adult syndrome child. And we have to say, it's okay. Let go of that. Like, I'll take care of that stuff. You remember to go out and run around the block. You remember to go play with the dog and let it lick you all over your face. Like, you remember those kinds of things to do. You take care of that stuff, and, but it's this like innate sense inside of her that she just is. And you see it with her relationships with her friends where she's just mothering and, all of this. And so I think it's so important that we really kind of look at them individually, number one, every child in every relationship, and then really kind of I guess it all does come from introspection and realizing, okay, well, if I need this space when I'm in this type of a mood, what kind of space or what do they need when they're in this type of a mood? And it's hard, especially when you're a first time parent, right? You come in and you're just like, nope, I don't, I'm just going to do the same thing that I knew that may or may not have worked with me as, my parents did to me. But then hopefully when we get a little bit new awareness and understanding, we can start to change that perception and change like the whole outlook of what our family can look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that you're talking about here is that you're providing direction. That might be innate, for your child to want to mother or want to take care of, your youngest. But you're saying, okay, that's great. That's a great quality to have. But at this point right now, your role should be this, and most parents out there today, they're not providing that direction. They're allowing their kids to do whatever they want, right? I don't want to get in the way of my child, exploring. So, well, okay, exploring is great, but exploring and falling off a cliff is not. So, so we do have to, as parents, have that guidance, so that we could, help them go in the direction that they want to go in and grow and evolve, but evolve in a healthy way.
Yeah, definitely. What process would somebody take if they wanted to just get started to get into a program? What does that look like? How do we start to navigate that?
Well, we do coaching with couples, and we do a free evaluation right from the beginning to kind of assess the couple and kind of where they're at, and also to see which program would be a better fit for them. Whether it be the couple to couple program that we do, or whether it be the relationship enhancement weekend, that we put on twice a year.
Mm.
And we also have a home study course as well that couples can do, on their own and kind of learn from us in that way.
I was just thinking about that question. It's a big question, right? Because we're in the game already. So the getting started, you're already in the game, right?
Yeah.
And in traditional counseling, it's sort of like discovering yourself and shifting perspectives and that kind of thing. But when you're working with couples or you're working with families, it's not that at all. And when we try to train therapists how to do this work, they're like, it's so rigid, it's so structured, and it has to be. It's like you need to take, and we've seen families turn things around so quickly. We just had a family, they came in for family work. The daughter was 23,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted her parents to do family work with her.
Wow.
And when we met with the parents, we're like, oh, you guys need couples work, and your child needs to stop being your therapist.
Mm.
Like she was already refereeing their arguments and all that kind of stuff. And so once we started, with the couple, and she had her own therapist, because in our model, everyone has their own therapist. And she was like, when are we doing this family work? When are we doing this family work? We're like, we're not ready yet. And by the time the couple was able to shift and be the adults finally in that relationship, she could then soften and be the child again.
Mm.
And then it was very few sessions we really did with them that reestablished those proper boundaries. So that's the biggest thing with families is the boundaries are so diffused. And once they get put in the right spot, they're okay. And we use this analogy of if you're driving your car and the speed limit is 35 and you're going 50, cop pulls you over and says, it's 35. You can see it. And I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry. This thing's going on. And the cop says, okay, well, don't let it happen again. So the next week, same thing, right? You're driving 50 and the 35, cop pulls you over. Sarah, you know what? We talked about this. There's kids. Someone's going to get hurt. And the cop's all mad, but let you go again. Third time you're driving down the street, you go 50 and then 35, cop pulls you over, gives you a $5,000 ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And you go home and you talk to your neighbor. You're like, could you believe this happened? And your neighbor says, I had the same experience, but I got a $200 ticket. And when we parent from a place of whatever mood we're in, that's scary. Could you imagine if that's the way it was, that if you speeded.
You're right.
and I did, we get the same consequence. So therefore we're empowered in the world to choose. I can choose to drive 35, or I can choose to pay, I don't know, fortunately, what tickets go for anymore, but whatever that is.
Yeah.
And it's the same. And we know, and we can choose, as opposed to what mood is the cop in? Am I going to get let go? Am I going to get yelled at? Am I going to get, thrown in jail? It's so scary. And we have such reactive parenting. And so that's the reason for the structure. When you're dealing with more than one person, you can't just say, well, what do you feel like doing? You have to say, you need to consider your partner. You need to consider the other people in the home, and you're not the most important thing.
Mm.
And people are all walking around like, I'm empowered, I'm the most important thing. No, that's not community. That's not family. That's not a relationship.
Right.
It's just selfishness.
Yeah.
And I heard that they said we live in that in a narcissistic time. I hate the word because it's so overused, but we do selfies.
Yeah.
And it's all about the self. And it's really unhealthy for us in our mental wellness, in our emotional wellness. And it's why anxiety is so high and depression is so high, because what's more important is being kind and thoughtful and being in relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Something I made me think of in that conversation was when kids are really little and, grandparents are like, oh, you love me the most, right? And asking these questions. I always told my daughter, and I think, I don't know if this is going against what you just said or rooting it on, but I grew up with not a good sense of self, and no self-love, and a lot of doubt, and a lot of, just shatteredness. Sorry, parents, if you're listening. But but that's reality, right? And I never wanted to see my daughter question whether her value was there or not. And one thing I always told her when she was little is, you love yourself first. You come first. Grandma says, oh, you love me more than this. You say, no, I love myself more than anything. And I wanted that to be in a self-loving, preserving way, not in a selfish way. And so I think that there's such a fine line of that, isn't there? And teaching that line of self-love and self-respect, but not letting it lean into the, narcissistic, like you said, or idealization that you have more value than anyone else. It's so interesting.
I always use the example of the golden rule, right? Everybody knows the golden rule is treat others as you would treat yourself.
Yeah.
The problem is that most people get it wrong and they treat others better than themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And that's not the golden rule. That's so true. You're treating everyone equally. Right. And, yourself included. Right. There should be that self-love as well, and not putting yourself less than someone else.
Yeah, it really is the same energy. You can't love others if you don't love yourself. And if you do love yourself, you don't treat other people badly.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to.
No, that is so true, isn't it? Oh, I couldn't agree with that more. That is such a great lesson for everyone, really, not just kids, but for adults and everyone to learn, is that when you can really be present with yourself, and yes, you have strengths and you have weaknesses, but when you can bring all of that to the table and not be blinded by one or the other, then you can find this balance, especially in a spousal relationship, where you can, with my husband and I think we make a lot of accommodations for one another. And at the beginning, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. But now, more that I learn about like our neurotypes and things, that I realized that I was making like literal sensory accommodations for someone without having any of the background or knowledge. But no one else had ever done that. And it just gave him this space to show up, be present, be himself without having to completely mask every single time to fit in a situation. And it really brought this like wholesomeness together for us.
It's not that hard, right?
No, but it looks hard from the outside to others. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. And that when you talk about self-esteem, our greatest self-esteem comes from being in service, and not codependency or the unhealthiness, but of that genuine, if I can help and it's appropriate. Right. And that's why it's all the same path. You can't be good and everything else is bad. It's either we all win or none of us win.
Yeah.
And that's the main lesson we tell couples. There's going to be two losers here or two winners. There's not a winner and a loser, not in relationships. We don't keep score with teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I think that's beautiful, a beautiful sentiment. So when you started the podcast, what type of were you getting, questions from outside people and deciding like we need to, face more people and get this information? Like, how did that start for you? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the number one question that couples would ask us, when we were working with them is what we were going through normal? And, sitting across from countless number of couples, we knew that, what they're going through, the struggle, the challenge, whatever they're going through is normal. And so we decided to do the podcast because we wanted to, let people know out there and normalize it that, what you're struggling with, what you're feeling, it's a normal thing, right? Every couple fights. That's just it's a normal thing. And it's just a matter of how they react to it and what they do with that. And, so we started bringing couples on, interviewing couples about their relationships and the challenges and the struggles that they've gone through, so that, other people out there are not going to really feel alone. That was really the main gist of it. And then we started getting feedback from people that they wanted to hear more from us, and they wanted to hear about, our perspective on a topic, or, just our advice on something.
Yeah. So we shifted, and every other episode is an interview of a couple or an expert in something. And then every other one is just us talking about a specific topic. And that was the thing, to normalize it. You had said something that it kind of just sat there, and I want to just come back and talk about it. You said about being shattered, about going through things in life, and human beings are designed to do that. We are designed to go through trauma, and we are designed to grow through those experiences. And I'm sure you're sitting here today saying, I couldn't be the woman I am right now had I not done that. And it goes back to that idea that we're protecting our kids from going through it.
Yeah.
And we need it to some degree, right?
Yeah.
Of course, it's miserable and horrible to go through. But we did this one episode, I believe it was on shame. And when we were kids, it was, you were mostly told you were wrong. And if you're a person that you're 100% always told you're wrong, you can't learn right from wrong. But when you're told you're wrong, you internalize that and you say, well, what can I do different and better? And it gives you this opportunity to grow. Now we're raising kids that they're always right. And if you're always told you're right, you can't learn right from wrong. But when you're always told you're right, you think the world is wrong and the world should change. And it doesn't give you an opportunity to grow. And I think that's a really difficult thing that we have when we say, well, it was so painful going through what I went through. I want to protect my kids from that pain. But we're actually designed to go through that. And you can't anyways. Someone's going to hurt your kids, whether it's their friends or they don't get a job they want, or in the school they want. It's going to happen. And teaching resilience. And that's where discipline comes in, is so important for us, because, we always want the path of least resistance, but it's really discipline that helps us be strong in this world and confident in who we are and a good person, not getting our way.
And I love that you said that, because I think that people hear the word discipline and they my head instantly, my father was a major general in the Air Force. So talk about some discipline, but we're not talking about the same kind of discipline, because the kind of discipline he had and that he, was doing was militaristic. Okay. It was more of a controlled environment that didn't have a sense of self-discipline. There wasn't any self-discipline. I couldn't, like you said, I was always wrong. There was no way that I could do it any other way. And so it's so interesting that you said that. And when people hear discipline, they, have their own definition. Obviously, my perception might be different than others. But I see now the discipline I provide is, like you said, is more directional, is, hey, this is the boundaries that are set up for safety, number one, most important, for well-being, which is, you need to keep in mind as well. But you have to make your decisions when you get out there, and you need to learn how to do that. And even with my son, who has several life skill challenges we're going to have to face. We're practicing scanning groceries and putting them in a bag right now, because yet he's 13, and that's not too far away from being an adult and being, what if he has to buy his own thing at the grocery store one day because nobody's around or something, if he doesn't have those skills, if I'm not teaching him those skills, and he's going to be just lost and forgotten. And we can't do that as parents. And we can't expect teachers, people at grocery stores, bankers, we can't expect all these other providers to parent our children, to send them out and let them just, they're going to take care of everything. that's not what these people are there for. Like they're there to give guidance, to, lay out paths of that they can travel down or have toolkits and things. But you've got to take accountability for yourself, number one, and to then be able to take accountability for your children and teach them to take accountability for themselves.
Yeah, we see families that aren't really disciplining their kids, and then the school isn't able to, and then the police force has to get involved, or mental health. And yeah.
And, discipline and what you're talking about is different than punishment, right? Discipline is really more about routine.
Yeah.
It's really about a structure and creating a structure in place that you can count on.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, it's like, it's like meditation, right? In order to actually get good at meditation, you have to practice it and you have to create a discipline around it. Right. There's a discipline around sleep schedules, right?
Yeah.
Sleep routine, sleep hygiene. You have to have a discipline. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that it's really about that. It's creating something in place for yourself that you can count on a daily basis.
Yeah. I want to add to something that you said to that too, because it is so true that it can be chaos. And as far as for my family, and sometimes being all special needs and having different challenges, I have to embrace the chaos and find discipline in it. And that's a tricky thing. That's a tricky thing. When I finally, there was months and months and months where my son was going through therapy and he would be asleep during the day, and we medicated him. We gave him lavender baths. We did massages. We did all of these things. But when I really stepped back and I looked at his dad, who takes 5-hour naps at a time, wakes up, has this erratic sleep schedule that he's always had, that he functions on, I had to kind of give my kid respect and say, well, what if they're the same genetic? Well, they are the same genetically. So what if this is also affecting him, and all of the medications and society's timeframes, it doesn't fit for me and I can't make it work. And I have to respect my family and where we're at. And I like that you said that, because not every family is going to have the same idea of what that looks like, but being able to do that successfully, that's where it's at. We have successfully harnessed the chaotic sleep schedule that we call the moon cycle, where we're 2 weeks in the day and 2 weeks in the night. And, because we homeschool, we're able to do that. We're able to study at any times of day and get things done. And now that he's older and he's a teenager, I don't have to worry about getting up and helping him with toilet issues or things like this, that it was like a constant. I would just have to be awake all the time, and it was really hard, but it's all in what works for your family. So don't look at it in this system way that, okay, well, if my family isn't doing 9 to 5 and this and that, we're failing. That's not the case.
It's all made up.
Yeah.
We made up our school systems. We made up our schedules. We made up all those things, and we don't all fit in the box.
I love that you said that.
We have a son, he's 35 now, and he is doing very wonderful in the world. He did not fit in the box.
Yeah.
And, our main concern was helping him be intact, self-esteem wise. So, and we would always say, you're not someone that's going to conform. You're someone that's going to change the world.
Yeah, exactly. And, hopefully I see in this new era of parenting that we want the world to be kinder so that we can have happy relationships and things. I think that there is a huge divide and a huge coming together of things. And I think that's probably human nature, isn't it? And just kind of nature in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we are going through some huge changes right now societally, right? And this fight versus listening to external messages versus listening to your internal message. That is what I see. This huge shift and transition that people are going through. Relearning to trust your gut, versus listen to everybody else, right? Conforming to the expectations of the education system or politics or whatever it is, versus finding your own path, and not finding your own path in a way that I am against the external messages or I'm fighting against the external messages, but it's really about finding your own truth.
Yeah.
Right. And truth is not about anger and it's not about fear. Truth is truth. And that's really what we're going through right now, and trying to find that, that equilibrium.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring this up at the very beginning, and here we are way at the very other end of it, but that's okay. But I think it's so important because it ties into what you just said, and that is truth and trust. Trust is so important. And we sometimes don't learn trust until, we're backed into a corner and we kind of have had so many experiences that we, need to trust, right? But I was so early on in, my husband and I's relationship with that, just the very beginning. I just want to share this little story with you guys, that we had a trust issue. It was on my part. And now that I could take accountability from it, everybody can learn from it, right? I had never understood or seen how trust could be beneficial for me. Nobody had been honest with me about things. Well, nobody had, there was all these unanswered questions. There was all these hidden secrets. There was all of this unknown everything. So why should I be different? And it wasn't until this relationship was at risk that here I had thought, finally thought, this is somebody who is my best friend. And now I've made this crazy decision to possibly end this relationship and hurt it and do all of these things. So there was a time where he said, well, if you can't not lie and get over these things, it's not going to work out. It's going to be done and over with. So at the time, as you guys probably know, 20 years ago, there wasn't anything out there to help me stop lying book or whatever, kind of therapy I could get. So I had to invent it for myself. So I did something very unconventional. I went to NA meetings. And I went for the entire 8 weeks, 10 weeks that it was. And at the beginning, I sat in and I said, I'm addicted to lying. They were disgusted and scoffed at me and all of these things because, of course, in those moments, everybody's problem is bigger than anybody else's. And how could you even? But by the end of it, they really understood that I had every right to be there as they did, that I had to get over this addiction or this idea that I couldn't, just be completely honest all the time with myself and with others and everything. And it took, like I said, the whole 8 to 10 weeks, but in doing that, it also forced him to say, wow, she's really going out of her way to make these changes and make this work, and showing me how much this means to her. I have to change things too. So he started, it was kind of funny, taking sticky notes. And every time he would say a white lie or anything, he would write a note or something and he would put these sticky notes up. And then he was overwhelmed by the amount of sticky notes he had, and so he started visually, it was able to help him track, I can't say these kinds of things to people anymore. And through that, it was, like I said, it's been 20 years now. And the changes that have come for myself in my relationships with countless, thousands and thousands of people. The relationships I can have with my kids, the relationship I have with this amazing man who's my best friend and my lover, how exciting. But it intensified everything so much. It made it like the foundation of everything. So and I'm sure that you see that with couples, that there's trust issues that oftentimes are like the sub layer of all of the things. How do you help people start to gain control of those things? And maybe you can suggest that, or do a lying program.
One of the things that creates that, little children lie.
Yeah.
And they do it. It's a survival mechanism. And when you grow up in a home where you're invaded, your space is invaded, your thoughts are invaded, everything is judged, as a protective measure, you're going to start lying. It's a natural coping mechanism. And the wonderful thing is, when you get to be an adult and you have power and control, and other people you're able to protect yourself from that invasion. Now you have to deal with yourself.
Yeah.
And the payoff is instant. The truth works. Mm-hmm. And it didn't work as a child because you weren't in a position of power. Mm-hmm. But when you're in a place of autonomy and independence, and now you're choosing, you're not just reacting. It doesn't take very long to heal it because it works. And that inauthenticity of being disconnected in yourself, of not even knowing your truth because you're so busy trying to manage out there in a safe way, you can't really love someone if you're in that place.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say that, Carl Jung, he talked about a concept called the shadow self. Mm-hmm. Right, that there is a side of ourself that we show the world, and then there's the shadow self that we hide from the world. Naturally, we do that because we don't, it's very vulnerable, and we don't want to show our insecurities to the world. Well, when you grow up in an environment where someone is constantly pointing out your shadow self, and judging you for it, well, then you have to build stronger and thicker walls to hide that. And so now it becomes a matter of making sure that shadow self does not come out and nobody sees it, and that's the mechanism then of lying, trying to make sure that other people are only seeing that sacred side of yourself. And when you get into a relationship, then you can't help but your partner seeing that shadow side. And that's a very scary thing if you have your entire life coped by hiding it. Now all of a sudden there's this person here where the potential of a committed partner is that they will be the closest person to you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And if this person is now seeing your shadow self, that is a very scary and vulnerable thing. So now you have to cope even more by trying to hide that, right? But the potential here is being able to create something we call, the inner sanctum, which is a place where it is safe enough to be able to show your shadow self to your partner and be accepted. That is a huge opportunity for every couple. But I mean, that doesn't come without work.
Absolutely. No, you said it. It does take hard work, and hopefully going right back to being good examples and teachers, you're letting your kids know that relationships are work and they take a lot of time, and they shouldn't be expecting things. Expectations just lead to disappointments. That's why I, have and not healthy expectations, obviously have those, but unnecessary ones in so many areas of our life. Oh my goodness.
and I would say the word expectation might be a little off. It might be rules.
Yeah.
And rules really lock us up.
Yeah.
And having healthy expectations of how we're treated creating healthy expectations as a couple, as a family. You know, what are our values? Those are really, really awesome. The rules, though, that's different. That always will get us in trouble. That means something is trying to be controlled as opposed to come up for healing.
Yeah. Well, and I love that you said that, Jean, that all of these ideas and systems, they were all made up. They were all made up to begin with. It's like right there. This is mind blown. And it's so true because and how do we unmake them? What does that process look like now for us? I mean, that's a really big thing. It seems like the education system is so locked in that like and I see it unraveling at so many corners and edges and probably straight down the middle. But it's how will it ever be able? Does it have to completely crumble to be able to be rebuilt? Is that what it looks like? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it's a big problem for sure. You know, there's different levels that we have in our consciousness. And one is Chronos, which is physical time. And another one is Kairos, which is vertical time or time with God. And another one is Cosmos, which is whatever the energies are that also play a role in our world. And the school system only belongs to Chronos. And it only belongs to a place that says, do this, learn this. You can't learn sadness. You can't learn joy. You can't learn love. You can't learn compassion. Those are things that you develop in your life. And we've put all these things in boxes so we can add numbers together and we can read words. But that is only a small part of who we are in this whole big picture. And we have tried to edge out the cosmos. We've tried to edge out that, you know what, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you don't feel good because it's a full moon or because it's raining or whatever. And we don't have control over that because we're part of this whole system.
Yeah.
And some days we're just off and some days we feel great. And those are things we don't consider anymore. Yeah. And, you know, human beings back in the day, you know, the Farmer's Almanac is an interesting thing that's probably, you know, not read by many people, but it says, hey, we belong to a system and cycles. And this year is a good year to plant peaches, but it's not a good year to plant beans or whatever. And we knew that. We knew that relationship that we had with something bigger than ourselves. And the school systems and the powers that be want to tell us, no, we're in control and we can do whatever we want. Guess what? None of us are getting out of this alive.
Yeah.
Okay, how much money you make or how in control you are. And we're missing that bigger piece.
Absolutely. No, I love that you said that about the moon and everything because it's so true. In fact, in doing all of the research, I used to be a paralegal, so I just love research. But in doing the research about the moon cycles, I like had to tie it in, and I was able to now understand all the chemicals that are released in your brain during those cycles of the moon and how they can affect your productiveness. And so we have a little thing in our house that has like the schedule of during this time, you might, you know, want to get this done. This will be better times for productivity. When you get to this time of the month, like right now, when it's full moon and just coming off of the full moon, there's a lot of dopamine and there's a lot of kind of lazy energy and slow, and you don't have to beat yourself up. You just kind of breathe into it and take the time to relax then this week. Like set up your appointments at the new moon schedule when you're all activated and excited and you have all these creative juices flowing, and to be able to use our own like nature's, you know, like you said, the Farmer's Almanac, all of that. I was just thinking the other day I needed to go buy one because I haven't read it in so long. It has so many answers and so many guidances and things that we just we have taken for granted and don't take advantage of anymore.
You set up your own family almanac. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. This is what you can expect for this time. It's so nice though. It's like, I think that with raising my son and really having to hone in on the understanding at the beginning that he was not going to be on the same path as everyone else. We were going to have to kind of create our own space for that path to be in, and understanding that he walks around the world, number one, not judging anyone. Number two, the best part of all, never judging himself. Whoa, like that's this innocence and this beauty that we can't understand as people without that ability, I think. But it gave me the understanding of how to be more like that and how to want to kind of have that be more a part of my day is, kind of being more like him.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's, learning to trust yourself and then teaching that within your family. You think it was like a new concept, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we have tried to erase by making everyone the same or try to be the same, that we're missing all the richness of our differences and our uniquenesses and what we can really learn. And, even people who knowingly choose to have a child with Down syndrome or with some other type of thing. And everyone that I've ever talked to that has chosen that, they have such a rich life. They're like, this kid gives way more back to me than I even give to them. And we're trying to eliminate all that kind of stuff from this world. And we're missing the point. We're totally missing the point of our uniquenesses and our differences that we should be celebrating.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully we can all be, sharing that and convincing people otherwise, because we bring a lot of differences. And it's kind of funny that you say that, because I look at the humanity as a whole and I see that there's no one the same. And how is it so hard for society to understand that every single person is different, yet be accepting of it? It just makes no sense to me in any way.
Yeah. We don't live organically. We don't live in a tribe of 100 people anymore. And then you would just say, well, that's Joey over there. That's just how Joey is. Now we have labels and we have diagnoses and all these things, and they don't help us. They really don't.
It's a society of extremes now.
Yeah.
I agree. Where the pendulum has to go from one extreme to the other.
Right.
Yeah.
And, hopefully one day, I think we find that center ground, right? The pendulum stops swinging in its extremes, but I guess that's what we have to go through.
Yeah, I think the fact that we live in this technology world, it's happening so much faster.
Yeah.
So, in our grandparents' day, they didn't see these drastic changes from their life and their parents' lives and their grandparents' lives. And now it's so drastically different that most families don't even have extended family. They only are nuclear, and they don't have community, and they don't know. And we get our information from where? Who put it all out there? That's my question. You can go look it up, but somebody put that there, and we don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
There's no truth monitor in any of the things that, when we were in college, you had to go to a library and you had to go open a book, and that book was governed by somebody to say, are you doing this research ethically and properly? And, is it being reviewed? And is there a system? And now it's like, well, I have a thought, so I'm just going to say it. And that becomes a thing in the world, whether there's any validity or not.
Yeah. My husband always said that when he was growing up, he broke or, didn't break the rules, but didn't follow the rules because he was never there to make them. And why should he go and follow other people's rules that he was never even involved in making? I love it. Obviously, there can be a problem with that, but for the most part, it's so true that this when we are able to really structure and love and accept and be aware of our family members for who they are, and let go of that generational trauma or idealisms, then we can make better decisions for our family today in hopes that our kids will make better decisions for theirs in the future.
Well, that's the goal of every generation, to become better than the last generation.
Absolutely.
Right? To evolve and grow.
It has been such a great conversation. I can't believe how much time has gone by. So thank you guys so much for joining me today and just really diving deep here. And this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been really lovely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Before we go, though, let everyone know where they can go and support you, listen to the podcast, get this couples counseling if they think that it's right for them.
So the podcast is called Couple Synergy, Real Couples, Real Stories, Real Relationships. You can listen to that anywhere that you listen to podcasts. They can also visit us at couplesynergy.com. And they can also find us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube at Couple Synergy.
Perfect. And twice a year we do couples retreats. Mm-hmm. That's the weekend enhancement, and it's so beautiful. It will change in a really deep way yourself and every relationship you're in.
Beautiful. And in amazing Colorado. Mm-hmm. Absolutely lovely. Well, it's just been such a pleasure to talk to you guys today. I hope we can stay in touch and check back in and see what's happening with one another. And I'd love that.
Maybe we can convince your husband to come on our podcast.
Thank you. I'm going to play this part for him. Okay. Right. When yes. Absolutely.
We'd love to have you guys share your story. That'd be awesome.
Oh, and he has done a couples podcast with me about being autistic, married autistic. And so it's been interesting. So hopefully we can give him a nudge. And do you guys do audio or video? Both?
We do both.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't have to do a video if he's not comfortable.
I think that might be a good place to start from. Yeah. You guys, thank you. This has been such a pleasure. And I'm really glad that made new friends and we're neighbors. So now next time we're in Colorado, we'll give you a shout out for sure.
Yeah. Let us know. We're swinging
absolutely.
by.
Come to the saloon.
Yay. Absolutely. Thank you guys again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.